Let's quickly go to the United States now, where a neighbourhood watchman has been charged with second-degree murder over the death of an unarmed teenager.
The parents of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin have welcomed the news but say they won't rest until there's a conviction.
It would start the process of healing. Right now we can't get past our son being murdered and the person is not held accountable. So definitely that would help a great deal if he's arrested.
We can't just stop because we have an arrest. We have to keep pushing to get a conviction. And after a conviction, we have to certainly continue to push to get a stiff sentence.
And everybody's watching, not just Americans, but people all over the world are watching to see what message is sent. Is there equal justice in America everywhere, no matter where you're at, what race you are?
For more, we're joined now by our North America correspondent Jane Cowan from Washington. Jane, good morning to you. Things have been moving fairly quickly on this case.
That's right, and there has just been the press conference by the special prosecutor appointed in Florida, Angela Curry, where she has just revealed that the charge that's been laid here is in fact second-degree murder, and that's a charge that, if convicted, carries a sentence of 10 to 20 years behind bars, so quite a serious charge. In making this revelation, the prosecutor has said that she doesn't prosecute in response to public pressure or public protest, because of course this is a case that over the last more than 40 days has provoked outrage around the country, really. But she says it's not because of that. This is a conclusion that's been reached after proper, thorough investigation, although Reverend Al Sharpton, who is one of the big names who's been supporting the family through this, he's welcomed this decision. He is saying, though, that it wouldn't have come to this point, there wouldn't have been a second look at this case without this public pressure, and he's almost given a nod to the President, Barack Obama, reading between the lines of what Al Sharpton's just said, saying that if people hadn't chosen to speak up, hadn't said that, this could have been my son, which is exactly the words Barack Obama used. He said that if he had a son, he would look exactly like Trayvon Martin, and Al Sharpton is saying if people like that hadn't spoken up, it wouldn't have come to this. But let's have a listen to what Reverend Al Sharpton said earlier in the day before these charges were laid.
This case is a case to us that represents far too often what happens in our communities, where there is a double standard. We are not seeking to convict anybody. We're seeking to stop them from acquitting someone without a trial. We are not trying to rush to judgment. We are trying to stop the rush to judgment that Mr. Zimmerman apparently made on the night of February 26th.
Al Sharpton there, Jane, as you said, emotions still running very high on this case. We expect George Zimmerman to run a very strong defence when the trial does take place.
That's right, and he, by the way, has apparently turned himself in. He is now in custody. The special prosecutor is saying he had actually disappeared. His own lawyers dumped him yesterday. He's apparently gotten new ones in the last few hours. They had said that he disappeared, that they didn't know where he was. There was some suggestion that he had actually left the state of Florida, and the special prosecutor isn't revealing where he is even now, because there have been these concerns about his own safety. One group had even put out a bounty on George Zimmerman's head throughout all of this. Now, the thing to be noted too is that this is now going to allow for the stand your ground law that's in place in Florida, and more than half of all US states have similar laws, to be examined in a court of law. So all these questions surrounding this case, the question over whether or not George Zimmerman was pursuing Trayvon Martin at the time, whether that will sort of negate the defence that would normally be allowed under stand your ground, the question about whether an unarmed teenager who only had on him a mobile phone, a bag of lollies and an iced tea could have constituted such a threat that it justified the use of deadly force. All of these things will now be examined in a court, which is exactly what the family's been wanting all along.
OK, Jane Cowan, thank you very much for the update.